Hello and welcome to this training. We are going to be talking about phase one of burnout recovery and prevention. And so, in this phase, stage one, this is a risk phase. So, this is if we don't change anything, if we continue on the trajectory that we are currently on, we are eventually going to burn out. This is not sustainable. So, if you find yourself feeling some of the symptoms that are in this stage, this is your wake up call, your invitation to be very proactive and intentional about your self care and the way that you support yourself going forward so that you can avoid going all the way into some real crispy territory. So, let's get started with this. So, stage one, it's a risk phase. Again, it's a wake up call. We are at an increased risk for burnout when we start to see these things. And so, again, we want to be proactive. And so, what are these things that we might see? Most of the things in this list are going to be pretty self-explanatory, but again, just to be hyper clear, we're going to explain them real quick. So, number one, no time for self-care. That's pretty much what it sounds like. Either you truly don't have time for it, you don't have the energy for it, it doesn't feel like you should have time for it. Whatever the, I don't want to say excuse, but the excuse that's coming up in your head of like why you don't have time for it or why you don't want to do it, it just doesn't feel good to do. That's a symptom. That's a little bit of a risk factor. That's something that should get your attention of like, what's going on here? Self-care is something that we need to be able to do on an ongoing basis in order to take care of this human vessel that we have. So if we're finding that we don't have time or we don't have energy, which is going to be more of the second one, no energy or chronic low energy, this is going to be a good alert for us to take inventory of what else is going on. So second thing here then is no energy or chronic low energy. Burnout is something that I like to define as basically a state of overwork and fatigue that kind of crowds you out of your own life, where now all it is just obligations and responsibilities and work, 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 work. And like there's no time for you to just exist as a human, as a person, as a soul, doing the things that you actually like to do, doing the things that fuel you, that make you feel passionate, that make you feel alive. And so when we have work, 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 all the other obligations and responsibilities taking up all of that time and space, we don't have a lot of energy left over for the things that we really love, the things that really light us up. And so that is why this is in the risk phase. We need energy to do the things that we want to do. And when we don't have that, that's a problem. That's a warning. So that's the second one that we have here. Again, third one, this is pretty self-explanatory, but chronic overwork. If you consistently find yourself eating lunch at your desk or staying late again, depending on how many times this has been happening, like this, that's a problem. That's a problem. If we are going to go above and beyond a handful of times to finish up a task because we want to enjoy the vacation coming up, or we want to close up our loose ends before the weekend, that when it's happening here and there, sure, that makes sense. When it's happening Monday through Friday, and it's been happening for the past quarter, and you find yourself just keep saying like, I just got to get through this next week, I just got to get through this next project, we just got to make it through this next campaign, ma'am, or sir, you might be lying to yourself. That is chronic overwork, and that is a not sustainable practice. So please take heed if this is something that you are experiencing right now. Okay, critical self-talk. Here is another indicator that we are at risk for burnout. The way that you speak to yourself matters so much. You are the only person that hears every single thought you've ever thunk of. You, which includes you are the person that has heard every single negative thing that you have said about yourself. That stuff stays with you. And I can go into all the other reasons about like, what self-talk does and, how positive self-talk can change our perspective and all that other stuff. However, knowing that critical self-talk is not sustainable. It's going to lead into a breakdown of all the other things. And actually, critical self-talk and low energy, these things can actually affect each other. And it can also affect overwork. When we're talking negatively to ourselves, we feel like we have to, like that we deserve to work extra. We don't deserve to do the things that light us up. So that self-talk can be really insidious. So pay attention to how you're talking to yourself. If it's been critical, I don't care how long it's been critical for. If you have critical self-talk, if you have a mean inner gremlin that is loud and you're hearing it, that is a risk factor for burnout. Okay, and then the next one that we have is a lack of autonomy. And so we can see this in different aspects of our personal and our professional lives. In our professional lives, these are things that when we are in our role at work, we are not allowed to make the decisions that we should be able to make in our role. So, for example, if you are a marketer and you work on a team and you take a lot of pride in coming up with creative ideas and being able to put together, the action plan of how you're going to deploy this creative idea, what is it going to mean for the launch, and what type of, all of the stuff that goes into that. If you're not allowed, for whatever reason, whether it's a season of the business, a season of your own professional development, or other personalities that are coming into play in your professional sphere, suddenly you're not allowed to make those decisions anymore. Either they're being crapped on all the time, people don't like your ideas, you're getting a lot of pushback, or the worst one, you're being micromanaged a lot. And so you're not allowed to really thrive in that sense of autonomy that gives you a lot of sense of fulfillment and meaning from your profession. That is not sustainable, and that is a risk factor for burnout as well. And this is a reflection as well of personal life. We need a sense of autonomy in our personal life. So if it feels like we are not allowed to just exist in our native state, in our own homes, with the people that we are supposed to love and trust and that are supposed to support us, it's also a type of a lack of autonomy, and it is not sustainable. Both of these things, what a lack of autonomy essentially is a sense of control, right? We especially when we're talking about work, like having that sort of like creative agency to like do things, not only makes it feel very freeing and feel very meaningful to do jobs at home or in the workplace that allow us that type of freedom, but it gives us a sense of control over our life, which we each need in even just microdoses. Knowing that you're going to do the dishes at 4:30 because you decided that you do dishes at 4:30 every day, that's a sense of autonomy for how you direct your life and how you direct things happening within your household. And that's the same for at work too. If you typically have deep work, creative brainstorming time every Tuesday at noon, and now suddenly your calendar is overtaken with meetings and you're never allowed to have that time, that's a lack of autonomy. We feel a little bit out of control. It's not sustainable. It is a risk factor. Okay, and then the final one that we have here is something that I call resilience breakers. So resilience breakers are going to be different for everyone. This is highly personal, but essentially what this is something that you know that if you don't have this, particularly if you don't have this on an ongoing basis, your sense of your sense of wellness, your sense of self, your personal spirit is going to start to feel really heavy, really fractured. So my resilience breakers, again, this is me personally. You do journaling and do reflection on what yours are. But my resilience breakers are I need to sleep and I need to be able to have quiet time in the morning. This doesn't have to be 2 hours of quiet time, although I will not argue if that's given to me. This is more like I just need to be able to like make my eggs, drink my yummy little beverage in the morning with like 20 minutes of time to myself. If I am consistently rushed and I don't get that time to myself, if I am consistently like diving headfirst in my work and not giving myself the opportunity to have a decent protein breakfast with my quiet time with my coffee drink, then like that starts to break my resilience. I start to like slowly break down. This is something that leads to all of these other things for me is when I have these types of resilience breakers. So everyone has these, everyone has the things that like you got to do them to feel like things are okay in your world. What are the things that you need to feel okay in your world? I will tell you, first and foremost, most people's resilience breaker that they have is sleep. We all need sleep. So if you're consistently getting really shitty sleep or your quality is not so great, that is a resilience breaker. So what are those other things for you that help you to feel that sense of autonomy, that sense that like you have control and that you are doing the things to take care of yourself? And these don't have to be crazy. You don't have to have a long list of these. There's usually like a short little bulleted list of like, these are the things I need to feel sane. Even when like everything is crazy, if it's a really intense season of life, if I am doing these things, I'm going to make it through and I'm going to be okay. What are those things for you? Those, if you're breaking those, that's a resilience breakers. And that is another symptom of being in this stage 1 risk factor for burnout.